Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf. In a tremendous mood. That is the Hall of Famer Chris Carter. In a tremendous mood. And, of course,
a team player.
Nick Wright.
I never say I'm not a team player.
Who, you or me?
See. And someone who is just in my experience, most successful grown men are the hardest people to change or evolve. Like, being this way has gotten me where I am. A man who continues to evolve in all facets of life to the delight of everyone around.
Hour by hour.
Well,
you're a different guy now than you were an hour ago.
I wasn't going quite that far.
Oh, sorry.
But you know what I'm talking about. It's a wonderful thing to see.
Yeah. And if I don't get better, y'all can get rid of me next year at this time if the show is not doing better.
It will be. This is who we are. We're all in a good mood today. Hope you guys are as well.
I'm motivated by magic.
It is Wednesday morning. We got a lot to talk about. We will start with NBA free agency because it's free, so why not? The Lakers seem to have center stage as we get set for that July 11th free agent period. Big names like LeBron and Paul George, even Kawhi Leonard, have all been rumored to want to land out in Los Angeles, either signing there or via trade. Team President Magic Johnson met the media yesterday and said it's not all about this offseason.
If we're banking on one summer for the Lakers, we're in trouble, right? We're in trouble because you have to give us time. This class, like I told you before I took the job and when I took the job, it's going to be a 2-summer thing for the Lakers. This summer and next summer. And that's it. And then if I can't deliver, I'm going to step down myself. She won't have to fire me. I'll step away from it, because then I can't do this job. No pressure on me. I mean, I'm gonna do my job. I've always done that. Look, I've been playing in, finals I've been in. So you think I'm worried about this? I played against Larry Bird in the finals. I mean, come on, man. I've been in 9 finals. I've been in college NCAA championship, I'm Magic Johnson. I'm still the same dude.
Oh, I love that so much.
It was a really fruitful little presser he had with that one. CeCe, what do Magic Johnson's comments tell you about the future of the Los Angeles Lakers?
I like Magic. I like where he's at. I like where his thinking's at. But if I'm a reporter in the room like you, Jenna, you know what I asked him? But you're not playing, though. This is about organizing a team. This is something you've never done. This is not high school. This is not college, where you're the best player in college basketball. It's not where you were an outstanding rookie, but you also had Kareem and some other great players around you. So as a reporter, I've been like, yeah, Magic, but there is still question about how good you're going to be at this. Now, I like that his time frame. I like in Magic that he surrounded himself with a very, very competent team. And I believe Magic is also, he's looked out over the horizon and realizes LeBron can stay in Cleveland another year. And then he could potentially also come to Los Angeles. LeBron, this is not the most important year in his family's life because next year will be when the son decides to go to high school compared to 8th grade. So I like Magic. He's going to be more successful when you can set up a realistic plan. And he can't control Paul George. Paul George decides to stay in OKC. That's not Magic, but Magic hadn't set himself up for failure with his fan base and there with the Lakers organization saying, you know something, it's 2018 or bust, because there's going to be potential free agents in next year's class that can change an organization also, Nick.
Listen, what I took from the first comments, the comments where he's not at the podium, where he's standing there, where he says, Magic Johnson says, basically, if we don't get a whale this year or next, I'll quit. I'll resign. I will step down. Magic Johnson is not in the failure business. Aside from his talk show and his coaching career, he's been a wild success at everything he's ever done.
Doozy.
The talk show wasn't great.
It was a doozy.
And Magic wasn't a great coach. But the businesses, obviously everything with basketball, he has been with the Dodgers. Everything he's touched has been successful. One of the most successful athletes turned businessmen ever.
And we can say in his first year, with Pelinka, him as a general manager, it's been about a year since they were named. They were successful.
Absolutely right. I would totally agree. From drafting Kyle Kuzma, which I think was probably more Pelinka than Magic, to handling the Lonzo Ball, Luke Walton, LeVar Ball situation as best as you could, and keeping the Lakers at the forefront of the NBA discussion. But so what I took from his comments were very simple. Magic knows he's got somebody. Now, I have a feeling I know who that person is. I think Magic knows that next offseason, Kawhi Leonard's going to be a Los Angeles Laker. Now, maybe they get him this offseason. Maybe it comes earlier than that. But I do not think Magic says, I'll quit in 2 years if I don't get a guy, if he does not fully believe he has a guy already. Now, maybe I'm wrong about the guy. Maybe he thinks we've got LeBron locked up. Maybe he thinks they've got Paul George locked up. I don't believe, and I've been led to believe, at least regarding LeBron, that decision has yet to be made. But I don't think he says that if he is not fully confident one of these three guys that we keep talking about, LeBron, Kawhi, Paul George, is going to be a Laker. And I think Kawhi's the guy he's most confident in.
You said it. He put together a realistic plan. There's a lot of pressure in Los Angeles, much like there was in New York when the Knicks were at the top of their game. What are you going to do? How do you get better? How soon? What's the timetable? Well, Magic finally had to answer, hey, guess what, guys? It may not happen this year. So I think you're right. He has some idea. Whether it's a Kawhi or a LeBron who doesn't have to make his big life family decision this year, or a Paul George, whoever it is, next year is actually the big key. Give himself a 2-year grace period, because in Los Angeles, you know those reporters there, all they want to know is how soon, when, and what is it going to look like.
Well, last year, even when he took the job, he said it was going to be a 3-year. Now, he knew that first class, who he drafted. They knew they had that high pick. They ended up getting Lonzo Ball, what people are very, very pleased with. I'm pleased with Magic selecting him. You talked about Kyle Kuzma, and there wasn't the free agent heist from last year. So Magic knew LeBron potentially could be free, knew Paul George and his desire, but also Magic knows the basketball community. There's going to be a star in the NBA. Now, I'm not like Nick, where Nick believes that Magic has a guy already. The basketball climate right now in the NBA says one of these stars is going to play for the Lakers. Now, the Lakers have always had that type of pool, that type of on free agency, and he believes that's going to happen in the next couple years based on privately what people have expressed to him. I don't believe there's one guy right now, but I believe there's been enough conversations surrounding someone coming to Los Angeles that he would make that type of statement. And also, I got to back up Magic as far as him saying there's not the type of pressure on him that he's faced throughout his life.
It's a different type of pressure, but it's not as it is not nearly as he was probably never overwhelmed, but it's not sitting purely on his shoulders the way it was when you're the best player on a team in the NBA Finals going against Larry Bird.
And he didn't have the reputation that he has now. Like, regardless of what he does with the Lakers, he still will always be one of the top NBA players, and he'll always be successful as a business person. So I believe he will be successful with the Lakers compared to the other things, coaching and the show, that weren't successful, because he's gone about it the right way.
So, Nick, let me ask you this. Would one big free agent acquisition be enough to consider Magic a success in this role?
This is why they hired him. This was what I got so frustrated with my friends in the analytics and NBA Twitter community when they hire Magic Johnson, and the answer and the response is, oh, how well does he know the CBA? How's he going to do in trades against Daryl Morey and Danny Ainge and R.C. Buford? And I wanted to pull my hair out, whatever hair I got, to say, and that ain't why you hire Magic Johnson.
No.
You hire Magic Johnson, you know why? Because he's Magic bleeping Johnson. Because you hire Magic Johnson because he, in addition to being in Los Angeles and in addition to being the Lakers, he gives you that added piece to get LeBron or Paul George
this is
or
why.
Kawhi.
This is the time.
This is why you hire Magic Johnson. Because whether it's the LeBron part, which is, the Lakers and basketball, but also what better former NBA player to maybe learn some off-the-court business stuff from than Magic? Whether it's a guy that, in Paul George, I grew up watching Magic Johnson. Whomever it is, he has an extra cachet that no analytics GM is going to have. That's what Pelinka's there for.
And also, Magic, because of what the late Dr. Buss did for Magic, as far as the education, as far as the way he opened up his home and business and relationships in Los Angeles to Magic when he came from Michigan, Magic owes this. to the Bus family. So you can believe that he's talking when Jenny Bus, when he said, hey, Jenny don't have to worry about that because I owe it to her and the dad and the legacy of that family. And that family, their legacy has been, if they don't have a star, go out and get a star. And that's why you hire Magic Johnson.
And that family, the Lakers are the family business.
Yes.
It is not, we have this big, it's the big empire and we bought a basketball team. The Lakers are the family business for the Bus family.
And it's not just that Magic Johnson has the relationships. He's good at these relationships.
Oh, man.
He's as good as it gets as bringing people in.
Absolutely.
Much like Chris Carter.
Oh.
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Chris
Whoa.
Carter and Nick Wright.
There you
right,
go.
Nick and Chris,
Thank
both
you.
together
Appreciate that.
at the same time as one.
Yeah.
They work as one. Coming up, which All-Pro thinks they can dominate the NFL for another decade. Plus, guess who's stopping by? Nick Foles, Super Bowl MVP, will be here live in studio. Next on First Things First.
At Buffalo Wild Wings, we'll admit that we often go overboard with our limited time offerings. We just can't help ourselves. Take our new signature sampler. For $15, you get wings and 3 shareable options, like fried pickles or cheese curds. Then there's our aptly named over-the-top nachos, a literal mountain of crispy tortilla chips loaded with your choice of pulled pork or honey barbecue chicken, corn, jalapenos, and more. Then top it all off with our new platinum margarita. Go overboard with us today at Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports. Available for a limited time while supplies last. Please drink responsibly.
Coming up on First Things First, Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles stops by, chats with us here on the desk, live at 7:30. Don't go anywhere. Should never go anywhere, but then especially don't go anywhere. Nick Foles right here at 7:30. We're going to get to the NFL in a second, but first, check out some soccer highlights. Andre Carrillo.
That's so good. Jenna was practicing the player name pronunciations all break. Little did she know the sport pronunciation is going to get her.
No, Carrillo with the hunker in the back of the net. That's the way she called it.
Anyway, Peru defeats Australia 2-0.
Some of the finishes in the World Cup are just
have been amazing. Milan Badel of Croatia with a beautiful goal against Iceland. Croatia won 2-1 with a goal in the 90th minute, Nick.
So a lot of people probably didn't see this goal live because if you only watched on one screen, you were probably watching the Argentina match, which I know we're going to show you in a moment. Croatia has been outstanding in this tournament.
You surprised a lot of people. Even though people in the international community, over the last several years, this young group of players they have are amazing.
Including the Croatians.
Dude,
surprised.
oh my goodness.
14th minute. Lionel Messi scoring the 100th goal of the 2018 World Cup, finally.
See, how does he settle this with his thigh?
Don't miss that part. A little thigh, a little hip, and then puts the boot on it.
I mean, how do you settle it?
Watch how hard he kicks it, though. Typically, you won't see a guy finish. He knew, and he needed all that velocity to be able to get past the keeper on that one.
I just can't get over the left thigh settled to the foot. 2 steps, right foot. That's his first goal of the World Cup and a critical one.
All right, sticking with Argentina, this is Marcos Rojo with a goal in the 86th minute. This one was epic, puts Argentina into the quarters.
I mean, what you said is absolutely right. Without this goal, Argentina's tournament's over. They got fortunate with a review where there wasn't a handball called, where it looked like a handball, where Nigeria could have taken the lead. At this moment, it looked like Nigeria was going to go on. This was a critical goal that could change the entire World Cup.
And this is why people like group play, because you can play poorly, maybe in 2 games, and get away with it. Them getting the win compared to the tie was critical as far as them advancing.
Absolutely.
That was a great game.
It was a great soccer game. Yesterday.
All right, new topic now. Let's talk football. If the average NFL career lasts 3.5 years, then Broncos linebacker Von Miller says what my kids always say. I poo-poo that. Miller, coming off his 4th straight year with 10 or more sacks, says he's got at least 10 good years of football left in him. It's a lot. Cece, why is it so hard for NFL players to play as long as Von Miller seems to want to play?
It's because the NFL is different than the other sports, that it requires more practice at a higher level that's more taxing on your body and the competition that you're put in. And it's hard for guys to be role players. Von Miller probably could play if we had like the NBA, where you could be a Cal Korver type.
A specialist.
You could be a specialist. You can come in and be able to spot up and be able to hit threes, be a limited player defensively. Yeah, you could. Von Miller could come in
19 seasons.
He could come in on third down and get double digits in sacks. He'd be very, very fresh, but when you don't play special teams, when you have a limited number of roster spots, and also the way the game day where you can only dress a certain number of players compared to the whole 53-man roster, those things lead to coaches and general managers not holding on to guys when they are older. But the practice is the biggest part. Yeah, you could probably play 10 more years if he only played in the games. But the taxing part about practice is totally different than NBA, which they don't hardly practice, or baseball, which they only practice a limited amount.
Well, in baseball, you really can't during you have spring training and then you're just playing. So why is the practice so taxing? Explain for people that haven't been there, because a lot of people watch on TV, they go to the games. Most people have never been to an NFL practice. Maybe a few have been to a couple training camps, and that's it. Why is it so taxing?
Because the intensity. Because the coaches are trying to simulate almost game speed. And the only way you can get better at practicing your technique is going against guys bigger, stronger, and faster, so that you have to keep trying to work at that craft. In the NBA, once you get a skill, people take it as if, man, he has this skill. It won't depreciate that much even as he gets older. But the practicing part, you're playing one game a week. You're practicing 4 days a week compared to the flip-flop for the other sports.
What you've seen from Von Miller, can you see him playing 10 more seasons? We discussed Tom Brady ad nauseum at the beginning of the year, but the quarterback position is very different than that linebacker position. It takes far more of a toll on your body. Can you see 10 more years out of Von Miller?
What we've seen is the greatest players that have played this position, they've been able to play a long, long time, especially if they're able to avoid, in the second half of that part of their career, a significant injury. If you look at Reggie White, played a long, long time. Look at Bruce Smith, played a long, long time. Now, you might not be able to do it, say, in Denver, but if someone wants someone to come off the edge, you have to realize Von Miller, he's a freakish athlete. Now, how aggressive is he going to be, Jenna, as far as the nutrition, the hydration, the overall sleep? Those are the things. You can be a freak athlete, but those are the things that start to set you apart when you get around 28 to age 30.
You mentioned specialists. This is the one position, right, where there are, to a degree, sometimes guys later in their career where they create a roster spot for you to be a specialist.
Yes.
I feel like Dwight Freeney, late in his career,
yes. Charles Haley.
So this is the one spot. At wide receiver, there's no, specialist. Hey, we're only going to have you run 9 routes. We're going to keep you on the roster for that. But for pass rusher, we see that occasionally. And for Von, listen, Von's played 7 years in this league. He's missed 2 games due to injury. One, he blew his ACL at the very end of his 4th season, missed that playoff, and plus the playoff run that year, but then came back healthy at the beginning of next year. Since then, 64 regular season games available, started and played all 64. So he has been healthy the second half of his career thus far.
And one thing, Jenna, you'll appreciate about this, you can't do something as strenuous as this unless you really, really love it. So when you talk about a guy who's got a chance, this is why I love guys who talk this way compared to Ben Roethlisberger last offseason or other players saying, you know something? It's hard to play a long, long time if you really don't love it, because you're not going to make those type of sacrifices that you need to make.
All right, let me ask you a question. I know you don't always like if the story's not about you and I bring you into it, but I'm going to do that anyway. You played 16 years.
Yes.
What allowed you, because he's played 7, so 10 would put him right around that same time. What allowed you, do you think, to play years 13, 14, 15?
There were a number of things. Number one is I didn't reach my prime. I was a later developer, so I didn't really get great at football until about 1994, around my 5th to 7th year in the league. So that's when I broke the NFL record. Then I had Dennis Green, who came up with the 3-receiver offense, put me in the slot. And then after that, then I had Randy Moss. So I had a couple things that would propel me. Dennis Green moving me to the slot, me being in my prime. Then we drafted Randy Moss, gave me another 4 years that kept the game very, very exciting. And having him on the team, it was challenging every day to be the best on the field. So those things help as you advance in age.
I thought you might say something like that, because that's what I find interesting about any guy that wants to play really long. Is when you've talked about this, yes, of course, you have to avoid injury and you have to stay in shape. But what helped you play so long is there were new things that helped your brain stay interested in it.
Yes.
Moving to the slot, you had to learn something new. Competing with Randy, you all of a sudden had to take your game to as high of a level as you ever had. Like, those are so it's not just about Von Miller or anybody who wants to play really long staying healthy. It's about also the game not getting boring or rote or monotonous for them, right?
Yeah, but it all starts with their desire to play for a long, long time. When guys talk about playing a long time, typically they're going to be able to fulfill that. And you can't leave out, he is a freakish athlete. Now, Tom Brady's not a freakish athlete, but he's playing the type of position that you can play and get old at if you get consumed with taking care of your body, getting enough rest, and making all those sacrifices that people like Jenna make.
I make them every single day. It's hard. Just being on the show is a sacrifice. Plus, we get 10 years of more Old Spice commercials if Von Miller stays in the league. So
that's a good line. I don't know who fed that to you. But
literally nobody. Literally, I didn't even have this in my ear. It was just me. You guys like my line? That was great.
Good job.
Hey, coming up, why are the Rockets still in the hunt for LeBron James? You'll see.
That on.
I'm going to put that back in. They're talking to me. They're like, hurry up. Also, less than an hour, Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles stops by. All that and more. First things first.
Hi, I'm Alexi Lawless. I used to play soccer back in the 1900s for the U.S. Now you can find me talking about soccer this summer during the World Cup on Fox. Now through July 15th, you can get daily FIFA World Cup updates from me through your Alexa-enabled device. Just say, Alexa, play the Fox Sports Flash Briefing, and you'll get the latest tournament news straight from Russia. Alexa and Alexi. Now that's a winning team. Don't forget to watch the 2018 FIFA World Cup all tournament long live on Fox and FS1.
Time for some stories to start your morning. Argentina beat Nigeria 2-1 in the soccer game to advance to the round of 16. Lionel Messi scoring in the 14th minute, and Marcus Rose scored the game winner in the 86th minute. This was a phenomenal game. Nick, how important was this game, not just for Argentina, but for Messi?
Well, listen, obviously for Argentina, if they don't win, they don't advance. So wildly important for them. For Messi, because everyone in sports media, it would appear, has turned into just a, what have you done for me lately? And by lately, I mean in the last 72 hours.
Yes.
It was very important.
Everyone's jumped on the bandwagon criticizing Messi.
Messi leads all of Europe in goals. Goals created, assists, doesn't matter. He had a bad 2 games. So this was critical. He almost scored another goal off a set piece. Now it's a whole new tournament. Single elimination. They're one of the 16 teams that's going to be left.
And that's one of the things about group stage that people love. You don't have to dominate in games 1 or 2. If you're able to get a tie in one of those games, you can salvage your tournament, and that's what they've been able to do. So Ronaldo, Messi, and the other greats, we see them all moving on.
Absolutely.
All right, to the NBA now. The Clippers traded Austin Rivers to the Wizards for Marcin Gortat. Remember, Austin's dad, Doc, still the coach of the Clippers, no longer the general manager of the Clippers. Chris, you surprised Austin Rivers got traded?
No, you knew eventually, especially when they kind of remove some of those titles from daddy's name. This is probably the son. Typically, he's going to get a demotion or something. It's typically going to happen to him. I believe Austin Rivers is more than a competent NBA player, but it's hard playing for your dad. When they traded for him, eventually we were going to get to this day, and when the team started to slip, Austin, the criticism he gets, I think it's better for Austin's career to be able to go to Washington.
Well, and everyone is focused, understandably, on the kid got traded from the team, his dad coach. But I want to talk about the other side of this. The Clippers trading for Marcin Gortat, to me, says DeAndre Jordan is available. Now, he has an option that he can opt into, but even if he opts in, I think they're going to move him. So if he opts out, obviously he's a free agent, but DeAndre Jordan is available if the team wants him.
All right, to the NFL now. Odell Beckham is still hoping the Giants give him a contract extension. One Giants legend agrees with that. Phil Simms
Your guy.
said the Giants need to, quote, pay that man his money in regards to Odell. Chris Carr, do you think the Giants give Odell a contract extension before the season starts?
I believe it's not that easy, and especially when you talk about wide receivers. If you talk about $20 million, like paying a wide receiver $20 million, what does that do for the rest of your team? I don't believe it's easy. I believe Odell is one of the best in the league. Does he deserve money? Yes. But the way the collective bargaining agreement, if I'm the Giants, I wouldn't be in a rush. The collective bargaining agreement states if I draft you in the first round, I get a 4-year deal and an option year. Exercise that option. I have the right to be able to franchise you for 2 more seasons. Why wouldn't they do that compared to giving him all the guaranteed money? So I don't necessarily agree with Phil Simms, but I didn't play for the Giants like Phil Simms, so I don't have to say something that would be to the advantage of the Giants players.
Listen, if Odell doesn't deserve a contract extension, then who other than quarterbacks in this league do? And I think if the Giants had drafted a quarterback at number 2, if they were going with some type of rebuild, then maybe you make the argument we don't want to pay $20 million for a wide receiver. But when you go sign Nate Solder, when you draft Saquon Barkley, when you're trying to compete again with Eli Manning, you need the best player on your team there for training camp, there for week 1, and happy for all those reasons, and because he's earned it. I make Odell the highest paid receiver.
Are you sure if you give him the money that he's going to be happy?
Happier. He'll be happier. Everyone's happier with more money. Sure. I mean, Odell's maybe won't
Big difference
ever
between
be totally
happy and happier.
Sure.
All right, finally, is it me or is Le'Veon Bell always in contract talks with the Steelers? Last season, Pittsburgh gave him the franchise tag, so he skipped all of training camp. This year, Pittsburgh gave him the franchise tag, so he's skipping all of OTAs. But big news from the Bell camp, the running back is confident they can get a long-term deal done. He says they're, quote, a lot closer than last year. CC, you buying this?
Well, Jenna, they have real pressure now because they've gone through the first episode of we'll franchise him. Nothing he can do. He was like, oh, no problem. I'm out of here after this year. Well, we can franchise you again. So now we're at our second but last dance. The Pittsburgh Steelers, really, they have no other option after this, right? They've exhausted all their options. So I believe it's easier to put them in a predicament to make them pay him at a more reasonable number than there wasn't any pressure the last 2 years. Pittsburgh knew. They had the franchise tag in their back pocket. They already had Ben signed to a long-term contract. They signed Antonio to a long-term contract. So they knew they could franchise him. And doing that for a running back has been a very good strategy for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's made good money, but they didn't have to shell out the guarantees as far as from a contract standpoint and or the signing bonus. So, yes, I believe Pittsburgh because they've been pressed to the wall and realized that Le'Veon Bell, he could play another 3 or 4 years at a higher level. So I do believe they get it worked out.
They're another year removed also from his suspension issue. So, like, another year of an example of that he's kept his nose clean to a degree. And CeCe's point's the most important one. If they do not get a contract extension done with him this year, this is the last year he'll be a Steeler. Because they will lose. Technically, you can franchise a guy 3 times, but you never do it because the salary becomes exorbitant in the 3rd year of that franchise. So they wouldn't franchise him 3 times. And he also, he's not going to give Pittsburgh a hometown discount, not if they franchise him twice when he wants a long-term deal. And the one thing you didn't mention as far as pressure is the Steelers know they wasted an opportunity last year. That was the most talented team in football in my eyes, at least in the AFC. And they got bounced before the Super Bowl again. They lost their biggest regular season game again, the one to New England. Like, the idea that you want to have the added pressure of this is our last year with our big 3 because L. Bell's out of here after this season, I don't think that's good for them. So if he doesn't want $18 million a year, if it's closer to $14 million a year, I think he's earned it. Like, he is one of the 3 best running backs, just like Odell's one of the 3 best wide receivers.
Right.
This is one of the 3 best running backs in football.
So you guys are both pretty confident there's another team out there after this that'll pay him the $18 million he's looking for?
I don't know about $18 million. No running back. That's a huge number for a running back. But there would be a market out there for him, especially on teams that have the cap space, but teams that aren't winning. If you like last year, people talked about, well, will he go to the Browns and everything? Well, yeah, he could have gone to the Browns, but no running back's going to get $18 million.
But they could reset the market. That's the thing. That's why Ezekiel Elliott, David Johnson, Todd Gurley are all watching this closely. Because right now, the first franchise tag for a running back pays you like $8 to $9 million, the first one. Because the running back market is so depressed. They need one guy to go out there and get, forget the 18. That was always a bit of a pipe dream. But $13 million a year, $14 million a year.
My question was whether the Steelers would end up paying him more than he could get on the open market, whether that would be incentive enough to stay in Pittsburgh.
I think that we're not there yet. I think that both parties know. L. Bell knows because of a long-term health standpoint, and the Steelers know because they are a championship contender. The best situation for all parties is to get a deal done this offseason. They weren't able to last year.
I can't make any more Le'Veon Bell jokes if he signs a contract.
I know.
So I don't know what's best for me.
Topics.
It's actually about. All right, moving on to LeBron watch. According to reports, the Kang will most likely make his destination decision by July 4th, an independent decision. Get it? Mm-hmm. Cool. The favorite destinations for LeBron, the Lakers and his current team, the Cavs. But according to reports, the Rockets are still all in on LeBron James. Nick, still a chance LeBron joins James Harden and CP3 out in Houston?
Is there a chance? Sure. Will the Rockets move mountains for it? Absolutely. Is it the best place for LeBron to win a championship next year? I believe so. Next year, not necessarily long term. Man, I don't think LeBron wants to live in Texas. I don't think LeBron wants to send his kids to school in Houston. And I don't think LeBron wants to potentially be in a position where he is moving teams again after this decision, unless this decision is to stay in Cleveland and he basically punts it a year. And I don't know if LeBron, I think LeBron believes he's going to play another 5 to 7 years. There's no way Chris Paul's playing another 5 to 7 years. So for all those reasons, even though if he signs with Houston, that's his best chance to win a title immediately, and Houston will move mountains for him, they would have any time in the last 3 years, I don't think they're high on LeBron's wish list.
Yeah, well, one thing that I'll try to point out, and especially when you're as wealthy as LeBron, if you can live in Akron, if you can live in Cleveland, you can live in Philadelphia, Texas, Boston, or Los Angeles. So people say, the Los Angeles thing's a foregone conclusion. But I don't believe that LeBron nor his team or family have a problem with them living in Houston. I believe that the team, they have no problem with his kids going to school in Houston because there's good schools everywhere. I just believe it's still about the totality of LeBron James and his business. It's just not about championships. We like to say it's about championships, but it's what will this move lead to? Now, I do know personally from the ownership of the Houston Rockets and the people making all the decisions, LeBron James will always be a priority as long as he's playing in the NBA. Now, they talk about they were consumed with Golden State. They're consumed with LeBron. They say, man, if the analytics don't have a LeBron equation in there, your analytics are wrong. Right. So I believe when you have that type of intensity from the ownership and the people and the management, there will always be a pull for LeBron. And I believe that the schools and where they're living, the guys can get around that.
Well, 2 questions. One, what would have to happen for that to work, for LeBron to be able to go there, for people that don't fully understand?
He's got to opt in by Friday. Listen, theoretically, they could sign him, but if LeBron does not opt in by Friday,
yes,
you can cross the Rockets off the list.
And 2, would that automatically make the Rockets the best team in the NBA?
I think it would. I think the Rockets were very close.
I mean, we could argue that they were better than Golden State already with Chris Paul. So now with LeBron, I mean, let's not forget how good they were. You add LeBron to that, there's no way they get worse. All right? And now they have the one person in the building got championship pedigree. We took that for granted last year. I knew it would be important. And LeBron could bring that. They didn't get that with Chris Paul, but they get that with LeBron.
Right, they get the one person in the league that has beaten Steph Curry and beaten Kevin Durant in the NBA Finals. Now, granted, they weren't on the same team, but he's beaten both those guys on the biggest stage. And C's point about the people in power in Houston being obsessed with LeBron, he is 100% correct. Listen, I don't want to reveal confidences here, but I don't think he'd be mad at me. Daryl, whatever I think about LeBron's all-time ranking, you know who agrees with me? The general manager of the Houston Rockets, and has thought that for years. That this guy is the story Cece was alluding to is Daryl tells a story from a long time ago that when they were creating algorithms or models to evaluate players, that one of the rules was, all right, that's great, we'll have our analytics department build it. Once you put in the info, if it doesn't spit out the best players, LeBron, there's something wrong with your algorithm. And so we know how much that team would like to get him, how they would. That's why I said move mountains. When I brought up Texas, yes, there's great schools everywhere, and I lived in Houston for 5 years. I'm not disparaging the city. It just, from what I've heard and from what I understand, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because of his wife, I don't know if it's because he's never lived in Texas, that the idea of moving there as opposed to Philly, which isn't that far from Cleveland, Los Angeles, where he has a home, Cleveland, where he is already, is location-wise the least attractive of the options. It is the most attractive from a ability to win a championship standpoint, but then you have to ask this question, and this is the one thing that we have to do when we do the math on this. Does LeBron feel, guess where you can win a championship? Everywhere I'm at. Nowhere I'm at's going to be in a worse position than Cleveland was this past year.
There's no doubt.
And we got there and should have won game 1, and then who knows if I don't break my hand. So is LeBron's championship equation simply where I go? we become a contender. Like, yes, having good players is nice, but I'm the championship equation.
I believe that's why the Lakers are the favorite, because he knows that. And he knows what he did with the roster that they had in Cleveland.
All right, we got to take a break. Nick Foles is going to stop by in a little bit, but coming up next, can Aaron Rodgers lead the Packers back to the Super Bowl? Former head coach Eric Mangini is in-house to talk about that and more next on First Things First. Former head coach Eric Mangini joins the show.
What up, Coach? Good to see you.
Morning. This right here is a prime example why people are trying to hire our wardrobe people away from us. This is how we do it at Fox. It's called the Fox Blue.
You touching him.
Yeah, man. Coach Mangini
I'll be
looks
posing
good.
later. Fashion Week has called me.
Full spread. Full,
it brings out your eyes.
It does. It does. It pops.
I thought this was my lane, but it's not my lane.
Gaze into the camera now.
Good job, Christine.
So you know exactly
Victoria.
what you'll be
Drink
doing
it in.
later.
Drink it in.
Drink it.
Take me in.
Drink it.
It'll be 78 degrees in Green Bay today, and that is far from the hottest it'll get out there. The hottest it'll get will be when Aaron Rodgers takes the field for the first game in front of his home crowd this season. Rodgers missed all but 7 games last year, and the Packers missed the playoffs for the first time since 2008 as a result. But one former quarterback thinks the Packers are primed for a bounce-back year.
I think the Packers probably got better maybe more than any team I saw this offseason. The Jimmy Graham thing is a big deal. People don't understand. You're going to see old school Jimmy Graham. When you pair him with Aaron Rodgers, you're going to see a little bit of a different animal. And in the red zone, that'll be almost unstoppable. If their secondary is a little bit better, I think that they're the team to beat this year.
All right, Coach, what do you think about what Tony Romo said? Are they the team to beat this year? What do they need to become that team?
Well, this is a little bit like Dallas. So what we talked about with Dallas. Here's another place where they had a massive overhaul in staff. So they changed the offensive coordinator, they changed the defensive coordinator, they changed the structure of the way they're doing things with a passing game coordinator and a running game coordinator. So how that all meshes together, how well those guys, especially on defense, adapt to the new scheme, that to me is a big question mark. The fact that they addressed the secondary with taking 2 corners, I agree with Tony. That was a good decision. You know, they didn't really address the wide receiver situation. Yes, on the second day they drafted 3 guys, but we're going to have to see where those 3 guys go. I do like the Mercedes Lewis and Jimmy Graham pickups at tight end, because now you've got a run-blocking tight end, you've got a passing threat. That can create real problems in the center of the defense. So that's positive. There are a lot of question marks. They did try to address some needs. How well the coaching staff comes together, to me, is going to be a big part of this equation.
Yeah, Jenna, you mentioned the weather. It's 77, cloudy, 78, I think you said 77 and cloudy. And it's smoking hot around the rest of the United States. And that's the same way it is in the NFC. So the only way I believe that Aaron Rodgers gets them to the Super Bowl, if you got to go through Green Bay, where it is frigid weather, and you have a tremendous home field advantage. I love the fact that you bring up, people talk about Jimmy Graham, they don't bring up Mercedes Lewis. Jimmy Graham in the running game is a liability. But because they don't have the tremendous number of wideouts that they used to have, now they can go 2 tight ends, Coach, 1 back, and 2 receivers on the field with Adams and Cobb, and be very, very solid. Not try to play the system they played before with 3 wide receivers and an offensive line that has tremendous question marks. And that's why Aaron Rodgers and keeping him healthy, I believe, is very important with having both of those tight ends compared to the way they've played an open set in the previous several years now.
I want to talk about the running back situation just for a moment, because since Aaron Rodgers has been there, they have as many seasons where their leading rusher had over 1,000 yards as they have seasons where their leading rusher had fewer than 600 yards. So, like, I understand that right when he got there, Ryan Grant was good, and Eddie Lacy, before he got a disparaging nickname of Fat Eddie Lacy, had a couple good seasons, but they haven't had a great running game his whole time there. What does Aaron Rodgers look like in your eyes if Aaron Jones, who we saw flashes of last year, or Jamal Williams, because I think Ty Montgomery we know about what he is. If one of those guys is a legitimate feature back, what does that do for Aaron Rodgers? Because I haven't seen that version of Aaron Rodgers, because the Packers haven't allowed us to see that version of Aaron Rodgers.
Well, just like Ezekiel Elliott creates opportunities for Dak Prescott in Dallas, Aaron Rodgers creates opportunities for any running back in Green Bay because everybody has to play a 7-man box. And what I mean by that is you've got to stop the passing game in Green Bay. That's what you have to focus on, which creates these tremendous opportunities for backs and even backs that aren't necessarily frontline guys. And there has been a commitment to Green Bay to run the ball more than you think when you go into it. So I think Aaron Rodgers makes the backs better.
CC, Coach touched upon the wide receiving situation. It was no secret that obviously Aaron Rodgers was upset that Jordy Nelson left. Tell me where they are with their receivers right now, and are you concerned at all? That's where he felt more comfortable.
This is the thing. Because they run so many plays at the line of scrimmage, the overall timing and communication with Aaron Rodgers becomes very important. And is there someone out there who can enhance what they're doing from a playmaking standpoint? They believe from a front office standpoint, we're going to develop wide receivers in-house. So with their draft picks, and they have done a good job of drafting guys and making them either number 2 or number 3 guys. I believe with the emphasis on some of the running game, having 2 tight ends, you don't have to be as spread offense as they have been. So I believe they can be more conventional, pro style, 2 tight ends, 1 back, 2 wide receivers, because they do have 2 good wide receivers in Adams and Cobb. So I believe the system, but they have to be committed to the running game because it takes pressure off that offensive line.
And when you look at New England, Tom Brady consistently turns good wide receivers into great wide receivers, and that's the responsibility that Aaron Rodgers has. When you want to be paid what Aaron is hoping to be paid, and then look, he should be paid, then you have a responsibility to develop those guys, to make those guys better players. And you're not necessarily going to get the stars in Green Bay. You've got to turn those guys into stars with things you do.
Can I circle back something you mentioned? They drafted a corner in the first round and second round, Jair Alexander and Josh Jackson. Most rookie corners are not Marshawn Lattimore. Even first-round corners. Like, you tell me your experience with this. I feel like you can draft a really good player who maybe is eventually going to be a Pro Bowler, and his rookie year is below league average at that position. Like, I understand why they emphasize that, but how much does that help them this year if he's a typical first-round corner, not necessarily defensive rookie of the year Marshawn Lattimore?
I mean, that's tough. I mean, I drafted Darrelle Reeves and Joe Hayden and Asante Samuel, so I was part of those drafts.
Sure.
I hate to pat myself. Let me just reach around with this new suit that I'm wearing. With your eyes, just drink me in while you take the...
Revis is... You understand my point. They're not going to be Revis. Go ahead.
I think that with any young quarterback, just like we talked about young quarterbacks, if he has some good mentors, if he has some people around him that can help him develop, he's going to get tested, and he's going to get tested on a consistent basis. So you may have to help him early in the season with the type of coverages you play. You may have to give him a little bit more protection than you want to early on as he's establishing himself and as he's learning. But at some point when you play cornerback, you sign up to be on an island, and they have to grow up pretty quickly.
Right, and it gives someone like Eric a defensive mind. It gives him more options of what he wants to do. Do I want to put them in press? Do I want to blitz? Do I want to play to my offense? Slow bleed them, play a lot of zone, see if they can get enough first downs. But the number of things the Packers can do with those young players, it increased on draft day, and that is a good thing for them.
Coach, thanks so much for hanging out. I say stay in the suit all day. I don't know if you can go to the gym or what you're going to do, but stay in it. You're going to turn a lot of heads.
I typically work out with a suit.
As do I. That's so funny.
It helps me.
Same, me and you, like this. I'm over here, though. Hey, coming up. You know who did that? I think Oprah did that once.
You ain't Oprah. Jerry Rice still playing the NFL, and Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles joins us next. That's right here on First Things First.
Magic Johnson put himself on the hot seat, saying he would step down if the Lakers don't land big-name targets. 2 of the biggest targets, LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard. So who is more likely to be a Laker next season, LeBron or Kawhi? Nick, we'll start with you. Take your pick.
The one who can decide to be a Laker this offseason.
Nope.
LeBron James. I think Kawhi Leonard eventually is going to be a Los Angeles Laker. But if you listen to the Spurs, they're not trading him to the Lakers this offseason. Now, maybe they'll change their opinion on that, but the Lakers are the leading candidates for LeBron, and he controls this. Kawhi doesn't control it. So, to me, this one's easy, LeBron.
Yes, and the one person that has 2 homes in Los Angeles. Now, I know Kawhi is from California, yes, and he's trying to get back there, but LeBron controls what he wants to do. I believe LeBron there might be a part of him that's a little consumed with eventually playing for the Lakers. I believe it's been with him for a couple years. So, LBJ.
All right, let's move on to Philly. Joel Embiid said his goal for next season is to win MVP, but he could have some competition from his own teammate and Rookie of the Year Ben Simmons. Which Sixer is more likely to win MVP next season, Embiid or Simmons? CC, take your pick.
Well, I would say there's zero chance Ben Simmons would be the MVP next year.
Ooh.
If he did, it would be the most drastic turnaround from someone averaging 15 points and can't shoot outside of 5 feet to being the best player in the NBA. Oh, no, absolutely. I don't even really like the question because the goal should be trying to win a championship. That should be their goal. It shouldn't be MVP.
Yeah.
If both of them play well, they should be vying for a championship. But Joel Embiid, I'm starting with the best player. The guy's he's more special than Ben Simmons. There's players closer to Ben Simmons than Joel Embiid as far as a center in his overall arc as a basketball player.
In defense of Embiid, he's talked about winning championships day before yesterday regarding LeBron. Now he talked about winning MVP. So he's talked about both. I'm going to say Joel Embiid as well for next season. I disagree with you on one point, though. I think the player of these two with the highest upside is Simmons. I think Simmons has a better chance of eventually one day being the best player in the league.
What does Joel Embiid have to get better at?
What? Playing. Show me that he can consistently play more than 30 minutes a night.
Okay, so what's the chance of that compared to where he is now compared to the other guy who's have to get a jump shot?
I understand that Ben Simmons shooting is a big problem, and you consider it a bigger problem than I do.
Anybody in basketball would consider it a problem.
If it lingers into next season, I might join you. I think it is something he will get fixed, and the other things that he can do are already A+ level in this league. But for next year, my answer is Joel Embiid.
All right, let's move on to football. Le'Veon Bell said he has confidence he'll sign a long-term deal with the Steelers, while Giants great Phil Simms said New York needs to go all in and pay Odell Beckham his money. Which player is more likely to get paid before the season starts, Le'Veon Bell or Odell Beckham? Nick, take your pick.
I'm going to say Odell. Odell's the player who's had the owner of the team say we're going to pay him. Odell's the player who has never been franchise tagged before, and that Odell's the player also, I think, that they know because they've dealt without him how critical he is to their success, and they've got a quarterback that is on his, in my eyes, last few seasons as opposed to Ben, who's probably got a few more seasons than Eli. For all those reasons, I say Odell Beckham.
You got to read the question. I know you're smart and everything, but sometimes you don't read it. It says before the season. The Giants, they don't have to pay Odell. They have a contract for the season. New contract, L. Bell, because they have the pressure. They have more pressure in Pittsburgh to sign him than Odell. Odell, man, they got 2 franchise tags. This year, next year, he could be stuck with the franchise tag. I believe L. Bell in Pittsburgh. More pressure.
Way to not read, Nick.
I read the question.
The early NFL
MVP
odds. I can't believe you can't read. The MVP odds.
Speaking of can't read.
Quarterbacks at the top. Why do I do that? It's so annoying to myself. But dark horse. Stop talking, Nick. Dark horses like Kirk Cousins at 22-1 and Deshaun Watson at 20-1 should not be slept on. And Dusty, stop laughing over there. I can still hear you. So which dark horse is more likely to win MVP, Cousins or Watson? CC, take your pick.
I believe there's a lot of quarterbacks in this category, either guys that have gone to new teams. Jimmy Garoppolo, people are excited about his 5-0 start in San Francisco. We had potentially him on the question. Deshaun coming off a tremendous rookie year in Houston. Will he be able to maintain that for a whole season? Or someone like Kirk Cousins, who you like to got all that money guaranteed in Minnesota. I believe it's Kirk Cousins because he's got the best supporting cast. I believe his wide receivers and their ability not only to get open, but to be able to make contested catches is the difference. Deshaun Watson and Jimmy Garoppolo, buyer beware. Fantasy football, watch out. I believe a correction will come to them, a lot like Dak Prescott last year, and watch them come back to the pack compared to building on what they did in 17.
I think the correction's coming to Jimmy Garoppolo, but I am all in on Deshaun Watson. I watched him be the best player in college football for 2 consecutive years. I watched him for a month and a half in Houston light the world on fire. And while Thielen and Diggs are really good wide receivers, man, Nuke Hopkins and Will Fuller as a deep threat, I think are a better pair of wide receivers. I think Deshaun Watson could have an enormous year, and they don't have the running game that they have in Minnesota, so he's going to be asked to do more. What's up?
Before we start the season, I'm going to show you some numbers and everything that are going to be shocking to your system. As far as Deshaun Watson, when you take away his first option, man, he goes from like a great quarterback to a very, very poor. I'm going to give you the numbers.
Sounds like that first option better get open, boys. Deshaun Watson, 20-1 MVP.
Maybe they can run your zigzag route.
Finally.
You need to stop misrepresenting that. That's in certain situations. 3rd and 20+. Draw an illegal contact penalty.
Jerry Rice says he could still play in the NFL at the age of 55. Luckily for us, we have our own Hall of Fame receiver on staff. Which wide receiver would you rather have on your team next season, Jerry Rice or Chris Carter? Nick, take your pick.
Man, next season, any season, I'm taking Chris Carter. Now, why are you shaking your head? What? Why are you shaking your head? Go ahead.
No, you're better off drafting yourself.
Why?
Man, we are not. The NFL is a young man's game. I just think it's just awful disrespectful at an advanced age, beyond midlife.
Thank
all right?
you. I got
As you
it.
talk about going back to the NFL, I know Jerry, he's the GOAT. He was the GOAT. You don't take that GOAT status into time. I mean, didn't he get cut?
He did.
A number of years ago?
Right, that's my point. And so you said it's a young man's game. You know who's younger than Jerry Rice? Chris Carter.
No,
and
I can't practice. A young man's game. It's a young, good-looking man's game. I'm well-dressed for my current job.
I'm going to give my hottest take of all time. You give Chris Carter Jerry Rice's quarterbacks, and let's see how those numbers go. Let Chris Carter play with Joe Montana, Steve Young. Let him go be paired with Tim Brown at one point. Jerry Rice, man. Come on. You know what?
Let me tell you what happens, Nick.
Rice.
Let me tell you what happens. We both still end up in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Nothing changes.
Oh, look,
okay.
You know the way I like to do the rankings. Maybe a few things change.
Yeah, I'm cool. Jerry's going to play football next year. You know what I'm doing next year, Nick?
What?
TV. I'm going to talk about football.
Okay, that's fine. Listen, hey, I would like to see Jerry Rice catch passes from Spurgeon win. See how that works out for him. My man got a lacerated kidney at one point.
I'm coming back now. If God touched me like Nick Foles, I can come back and play for that. I can do that. If I can come back like Nick Foles.
Okay.
All right. I'm happy we have a show next. I got nervous for 5 seconds that this was like your way of saying.
This is
no, you're stuck with
He's
You're
going to coach
out.
Come on, let's get to the eye
Coming
candy.
up. Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles is here to join the show. Hey, Nick. How are you? It's great to see you. Welcome.
What's up, man? How are you?
Almost took my head out.
Congratulations, bro. Welcome.
Back here, first things first. The Eagles shocked everyone in the world except Eagles fans this past February, beating the Patriots in the Super Bowl. A big chunk of why and how that happened. Quarterback Nick Foles, who became almost a cult hero that night, throwing for 373 yards and 3 touchdowns. Caught one, too. So happy with everything, he wrote a book. And now he's hanging out with us this morning to chat about that and everything else. We welcome in
Congrats.
Nick Foles.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Nick, we're going to talk about Believe It in just a second. That is your book. But first of all, I have to ask, what has life been like since your life, I would say, theoretically changed forever after winning the Super Bowl and picking up MVP honors?
Yeah, I mean, shortly after the game, right before I went on stage, I sort of leaned over to my wife, Tori, and hugged her and just basically apologized and said, our life will be a little bit different. It's been a whirlwind to begin with. But, this offseason, it's been crazy, action-packed. This week with the book coming out, we're going to be having a lot of fun, meeting a lot of people. So it's been an exciting time, but, definitely a lot going on, that's for sure.
And there's a lot going on. As far as your overall personality, the people that really know you and everything say it would be a stretch for you to write a book, to be going on tour and everything. Something made you feel obligated to do that. Now, what is that?
So yeah, that's a great question. When the book idea came out, when people reached out to us, at first I was really hesitant because the season's so long, as you know. I want to spend that family time, but my wife and I talked about it, we prayed about it, seek some advice, and there's too much in the story. I think that everything in the book can resonate with people. It doesn't matter your background. And then the big reason we decided to do it was not only are we going to share our hearts and go through that process, but 100% of what Tori and I receive for the book, we give away. So we actually did the book for free in the sense that, when we receive it, we're giving to different charities, organizations, churches. Like Dysautonomia International, my wife is diagnosed with postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, so that's an organization that really helps the research. Things like that. So the book, not only, we share our hearts, but when you buy it, you're actually helping a broad range of different things, which is awesome.
The foreword of your book was written by Frank Reich.
Yes.
And so that was, I think, an underrated story once Carson got hurt. Is the guy who was your offensive coordinator had been a backup who was pressed into duty, and he actually had the greatest playoff comeback of all time. How much did Frank Reich's experience having a similar role to yours help you right when you were in the crucible of it of this team's number 1 seed. They're going to the playoffs. I'm going to be the quarterback.
You know, I think the big thing about Frank is it's not even what he's done on the football field. It's just who he is as a person. You know, he's an amazing person. Just being with him every single day. It doesn't matter what happens at practice, what happens in a game. He's always going to give you a positive outlook. He's always going to uplift you. He's always going to be there to love you and care for you and push you. And that's why I know he's going to be a great coach for the Indianapolis Colts. And I'm super excited for him and, you know, love him to death.
Now, I know you love him to death. He wrote the foreword for your book. And now we're making a transition. He's a head coach. I know you're pulling for him. But now we got Mike Groh. I know Mike Groh, and I believe him and Frank have very, very similar personalities. But what are some of the strengths of Mike Groh as the offensive coordinator? What are you guys going to do that kind of maybe express his personality in the way the offense might be a little bit different than Frank?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Coach Groh, I mean, let's just say this as the Eagles as a whole. I mean, it's one of the best coaching staffs in the world. I mean, that's a big reason, you know, we're in the Super Bowl. Just the attention to detail, everything those guys do, they don't get enough credit. But Coach Groh, you know, just tremendous offensive mind. You know, he's creative. He's so
being a former quarterback also, people don't know that.
And that's what's important is when you're a former quarterback, you get it. You understand it. And I think the big thing with Coach Groh is, like, things are going to happen that don't work out good. Like, you know, with Frank, like when interceptions throw, but they don't freak out because, like, you know what, I played quarterback. I've done that before. The best thing to do is just say, hey, just keep throwing it, don't worry about it. And that's what's great about Coach Groh is he demands a lot out of us, but he also gets the game. He understands the game of football, and I'm excited to work with him.
I honestly thought the Super Bowl ring was bigger than that, but, I mean, I guess it looks small on your big hands.
You know what? I'm glad you pointed this out. I forgot to wear my wedding band yesterday, and I remembered it today. I almost walked out of my hotel room today and almost forgot it, so thank you for pointing it out. My wife's going to be very happy.
Of course. Well, it's a wedding ring pointed out.
You know what? That was a good note.
You know, you go into the season a lot different than you guys went into last season. Last season, you were underdogs. You were one of many. No one had a spotlight on you. The spotlight is squarely on the Eagles now this year heading in because you're not one of many. You're basically going in to defend the Super Bowl. Tell me, do you feel any of that pressure yet? I know you're not back at training camp quite yet. You're doing this tour and whatnot, but can you feel any of that pressure just from walking around, feeling what people are saying and kind of reading what's been written?
You know, I think there's a lot of attention. We understand the situation. I mean, we've all gone through it together. I think the big thing with success is, you know, complacency. And that's something that, you know, Coach Peterson's amazing. Like, he gets it. He understands it. You know, when he was in Green Bay, they won the Super Bowl, and then the next year they had a better team, but they ended up losing the Super Bowl. So, you know, he has so much wisdom when it comes to football that he shares with us. And our coaching staff is filled with wisdom. Our facility is filled with wisdom that people share and give to us.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, that was an example, you know. But then I think it's not even that. It's how you approach it every day. You know, Coach Peterson hasn't taken it easy on us. He hasn't, all of a sudden, we won the Super Bowl. He's like, hey, you know what, I'm going to give you some days off. I'm going to do this. You know, there's times where he's had to take care of guys, but, you know, this offseason, you know, OTAs, you think, hey, you won the Super Bowl, you know, it was a walk in the park. Y'all just go and go to the water park every day. No, we grind it out. We worked hard. We pushed through it. There's days where quite frankly, your body doesn't feel great during the offseason that, you know, it's harder to go out there, but we still grind through it. We still pushed. Coaches were still coaching. They were coaching hard. They're improving the offense. They're tweaking the offense. So we're seeing that, and we're trying to get ready for this 2018 season because, quite frankly, after you win a Super Bowl, the biggest challenge is doing it right again. So, you know, this season. It's a bigger challenge than last season because we've already done it.
So you guys obviously don't win the Super Bowl if you don't play I know it's a team game, but you played two of, if not the two best games of your career in the NFC Championship game, game Chris and I were at in Philly, and then in the Super Bowl. What do you think led to that, allowed that to happen for you, a guy who's obviously had some really high moments and also some low moments in this league, to put it together in the two biggest games you've ever played in?
You know, when I stepped in again with the Rams, you're thrown into the fire. Unfortunately, you know, Carson gets injured, and then you're trying to pick up the speed. I didn't play in the preseason. I had an elbow injury, and I was out all preseason. And then, you know, we played against the Giants, played really well, but, you know, I'm still getting acclimated to the offense, playing at that speed. And then the next two games, not as great. Mm-hmm. We have a week off to sort of reflect, breathe a little bit, study some film of my past games earlier in my career where we had a lot of success. And really, it's just more of a thought process. We were able to design the offense around things that I'm comfortable with. And then once, you know, my approach going to the playoffs was, you know, I'm not going to try to go out there and be the perfect quarterback. I'm not going to, when we get our installation sheets and it says 3 hits, throw, like, I'm not going to play that way. I'm going to use that as a baseline, but I'm going to go play football. I'm going to read, react, and just see what happens. I'm going to play basketball on the football field. The coaches are with it. They're just like, let it loose. So my mindset was that, and it was a lot easier to play that way. And I think that as a football player, sometimes you get caught in your own mind of trying to figure out what to do, whereas you have the gifts and abilities. Don't forget to use them. Like, trust them. a lot of the games right here, most of it is, but you have to react at that high speed, and then that way you can make the throws, put them on the money, let your guys make plays.
Now, the Philly special, wherever you go, people want to ask about that. And to me, that was a critical part as far as you using your brain, realizing, I know I have this on my call sheet. I believe this is the best time to be able to call that. But I want to go back to the Minnesota game because I believe the Minnesota game, because it was a great defense, a defense you respected. I know when you guys went through the install, how important it was for you to get the ball out of your hand, but you guys had to take some shots down the field. I don't want to talk about a play in the Super Bowl. Give me a play in that Minnesota game. Nick and I were there. That crowd, but you made some throws early that I believe led to the Super Bowl win in Super Bowl 52. Take me back to that game, and which throw in that game do you think made the difference in your overall confidence that catapulted you into playing two of the best games we saw played this year?
I think it was at the beginning of the game. I believe it was a third down, and, the pocket's collapsing. I'm sure there's probably been a highlight of it. And I'm moving around in the pocket. The lines continue to block. They're fighting their butts off. I'm able to get through, and Alshon does a great job of adjusting his route. He had a dagger.
Yep.
And, I think
Which is a deep end.
It's a deep end, 18 yards, coming in, and he takes it up. He sees me scrambling. He takes it up, and I find him and throw it. It's a huge touchdown, huge momentum change. And I think right then and there, that's when the wheels started turning. Everything started going. And I think that was what started everything on offense getting it going.
I think a lot of people wanted to make a bigger deal about your relationship with Carson Wentz because it would have been easy to. Carson Wentz gets you this far, you jump in, and you're like, okay, I won the game. But wherever you look and wherever you read, it seems like you guys have a great relationship, that he's been there for you even at the biggest game, which would have been the biggest game of his entire career, and you were there for him leading up to that moment. Can you talk a little bit about that dynamic and what happens now when this season starts and where you guys place out?
Yeah, I think it's a great dynamic. I think it's a great example to younger quarterbacks that, in high school, I feel like you're always trying to cut each other in drills. You're trying to always outdo each other. And then it becomes sort of a toxic environment. And it's not fun. And I've always been a relational guy. Even if you're a quarterback, I want to have fun. I want to push each other. We're all players. But at the end of the day, we're on the same team. We have to support one another. Carson's a tremendous player. He's going to be a great player in this league for a long time. And, I think just having those open discussions in the locker room, starting with your friendship first and then, your teammates and genuinely caring for one another, that means when he's out there, he knows, I'm not vying for him to get hurt or something. I want him to succeed. I want him to stay healthy the entire season. I want him to have a great career. And then,
even at the expense of you not playing.
Even at the expense of me not playing. But that's where I got to put my ego aside and say, hey, it's not, this is what's best for a team. I can still be a leader in the locker room, but just in my lane. And that's very important because it becomes tricky. I mean, you know how it is. It gets a little tricky, but, now we're going into this season, and, everyone's want to know, hey, are you going to start the season?
Yeah.
Where's Carson? We'll see what happens. But the thing is, Carson can get healthy. He knows I'm there. He knows I'm not trying to take it over. I would love to play in Philly the rest of my career. I love the city, but I know that's not the situation. I want Carson to have an amazing career there, be a legend there. And, I'm just excited about this season, and then we'll see what happens after that.
So when you say we'll see what happens after that, this is something I'm very curious about because you are coming off the best football of your career, the Super Bowl MVP. But you just mentioned Carson Wentz, number 2 pick of the draft, was the leading candidate for MVP, and you want him to be healthy. You want him to be healthy and have a great career. Even though it probably can't happen in Philly, do you want to be a starter again in this league?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love the opportunity to lead a team. Now, let me also say this. I'm not just going to go to a team, say, hey, I want to lead this team and not see who they are. It's about an environment. It's about going to work every day and enjoying where you work, the workplace, having that relationship. Because it doesn't matter what the hours are in a situation like that. You're going to love what you do if you love the people you work with. If it's not a great environment, I don't care if it's a short day and it's an easy day, you're not going to enjoy it. So if that does come to be, I want to find the right pick, be with the right team, a team like the Philadelphia Eagles organization. They do it the right way. It's an amazing locker room with amazing leaders and coaches. And, I've been blessed to be a part of it. That's why I'm not running away. They had me under contract this year. Everyone wanted to know where I was going to be. I'm grateful to be a part of it. They restructured my deal. They wanted me there. I wanted to be there this year. We'll see what happens after the season. But I'm excited about this 2018 Eagles season. I get to wear that jersey at least one more year, and I am super excited about wearing it one more year.
I think I understand that, being drafted by the Eagles in the supplemental draft in '87. I know something very, very important to you, and I learned this in Philadelphia from one of the greatest teammates ever. It was Reggie White.
Yeah, Reggie.
He was the first person ever taught me about faith, family, and football. And then I happened to go to Minnesota. We got Denny Green. And Denny Green said the same thing that Reggie White said. Somewhere along the way, someone has instilled this in Nick Foles. I read it in the book. Talk about the book. You're here to promote it. Believe in it. How much has your faith, how much has football and your family led you to writing Believe It?
You know, my faith's been everything. My relationship with Christ, and I say relationship. I'm not trying to earn my way to heaven. I'm not trying to earn anything, follow laws and everything. Christ did that. So I think that's very important. So it's a relationship. And I think that, you know, I had to get out of my comfort zone. I had to face my fears. I realized I was trying to do everything on my own power. That's why I almost stepped away from the game.
You mean as a super duper, I'm talking about unbelievable high school player, great college player, high draft pick, been successful. You mean you're doubting your ability while you're in the NFL?
You know, I had realized that I had put the NFL on this pedestal, and I was afraid, you're afraid to lose it. And I feel like a lot of guys can relate to that. It becomes hard to do something on your own power. You're eventually going to crumble. And I did, to the point where, you know, I lost the joy. There was different situations that caused that. But it wasn't until I stepped out of my comfort zone, took a step back, you know, really just looked at the big picture. And then my perspective changed when I entered the NFL. And because of that, because, you know, the NFL it's not on a pedestal for me. I am so grateful to be a part of the NFL, to be a player in the NFL, to have the platform of it. But, you know, I'm going in there every day to work, to enjoy it, to impact my teammates. And that's huge. That changed. Now I can just go play to the best of my ability and let everything else, you know, lie where it may.
The book is called Believe It, My Journey of Success, Failure, and Overcoming the Odds. Pick it up. It probably has something to do with your last season of football. It's
Maybe.
I'm sure there's other great stories in here as well. No, of course it does, and it's a great story. We thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Wonderful story. All the best of luck. Thank you so much.
you.
So few guests do that. You see the long reach, right?
Yeah, I got a long wingspan. So.
Yeah, me too. Everyone says Jen, long wingspan.
Get it.
Odell Beckham is still hoping the Giants give him a contract extension. No, they're not. Some of them are. One Giants legend agrees with him. Phil Simms says the Giants need to, quote, pay that man his money in regards to Odell. Chris, you think the Giants give Odell a contract extension before the season?
I don't think the Giants will. I hope they do because I believe it's in their best interest. But the way the collective bargaining agreement is where they don't have to, his fifth-year option, they've already exercised that. They can franchise him next year. They can franchise him 2 years. I think the Giants are concerned about the overall guarantees. Not about the average, is it 19, is it 20 million, but how much money they give him guaranteed. 60 million, 70 million. That could be right there. That could be the stumbling block between him and his money.
Here's the thing. It's not only has Odell earned it on the field, he's not a guy, even though you can call him a knucklehead at times, you have to worry about the money changing him in the regard of he's got the Nike money. Like Odell's, and because of that also, he can stomach a holdout better than most guys on rookie contracts. He's got big money outside of football more than any player other than quarterback. So I think he could deal with a holdout. I don't think the Giants want to deal with that.
All right, moving on to more contract negotiations. Last season, Pittsburgh gave Le'Veon Bell the franchise tag, so he skipped all of training camp. This year, Pittsburgh gave Le'Veon Bell the franchise tag, so he's skipping all of OTAs. But big news from the Bell camp, the running back is confident they can get a long-term deal done. CC, you buying this?
I think that they're a lot closer is significant because I believe his demands have come down. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have the pressure of losing a great player who they drafted and they developed. I would say it'd be a lot like James Harden going to another team, Kevin Durant going to another team. When you drafted them and develop them, it's very, very important. But they've run out of time. So I do believe Pittsburgh, it's in their best interest to get a deal done.
You're mentioning with Odell, they got 3 years to figure this out, theoretically. This is the last year Pittsburgh has to figure it out because if they do not sign him to a long-term deal, he will not be a Pittsburgh Steeler after this season. And if you're Al Bell, you already rolled the dice once. You didn't want to with no guarantees past 1 year. As a running back, that position, you don't want to do that again. So if I'm him, I lower my financial demands a bit so I can get some long-term security.
All right, finally, Jimmy Garoppolo tore up the Jaguars in Week 16 last season. He threw for 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, and ran for another to hang 44 points on the Jaguars' defense. But Jacksonville cornerback Jalen Ramsey wasn't impressed, saying, quote, it wasn't like he was just dicing us up. It was a lot of scheme stuff.
I love Jalen so much.
CC, how much of Jimmy G's success is due to Jimmy Garoppolo and how much of it is due to Kyle Shanahan, the, quote, scheme stuff?
Well, I don't – people who talk about football, they talk about players playing in the scheme. They try to take credit away from the player, give credit to the scheme and the coach. Well, what is the scheme without a player? You know, before Bill Walsh designed the West Coast offense, it was just a bunch of X's and O's. But then you put in Jerry Rice, you put in Joe Montana, and this thing starts to come alive. So both of them are very, very important. I'll tell you, 99% of all the players who played in the NFL are playing in the NFL. They need a great system to take advantage of their talent and to enhance their talent. Barry Sanders, Jim Brown, there's a few that they could play in any type of system. But the rest of us, we're dependent upon the system. So, yes, Cal had something to do with the success. This is the most, I think, yards and points that they had maybe given up since 2015. So it was significant, but I'm not going to invite him to the Hall of Fame off of that video. Jacksonville, they have a serious defense. If they were in their conference, I might be a little concerned about it, but I believe over a series of games, if they played a series of 5 games, Jimmy Garoppolo would have a hard time winning one of those games.
Right, listen, I agree with you fully. I give Jimmy Garoppolo and the Niners full credit for what they did against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That was the best or the second best defense in football last year, and they carved them up. Whether it was scheme or person, whatever it was, this was a game that still mattered for Jacksonville. They thought at the time they were alive for a bye. Like the idea that Jacksonville, we just didn't come
mailed it in.
I don't buy that at all.
Don't forget Blake Bortles threw 3 picks in that game.
Yeah, listen, absolutely, and they so. But still, they allowed 44 points. Garoppolo threw for 2 touchdowns, ran for 1. They had 2 more rushing touchdowns. That was a bad game for the Jaguars defense. But I do think that game has led to where we are now more than any other game the Niners played last year with this Super Bowl hype, with Jimmy Garoppolo being on MVP lists, with the Niners all of a sudden skipping steps as far as their evolution as a team, because you saw them hang 44 on a great defense. You're like, wow, this team was dead in the water. And then not only did they go 5-0, they scored 44 on Jacksonville. That's what I want to pump the brakes on a little bit. I think this game was an aberration on both sides of it. And whether it's scheme or Garoppolo was great, I don't think the Niners are exactly, and Garoppolo is exactly who they looked like in that one.
This is what I think this game does tell you. If you don't come with a buttoned-up game plan, especially against Kyle Shanahan, we know him and respect him to be one of the best play callers, but we got to give Jimmy Garoppolo credit because when you execute that game plan, I mean, they had some guys running wide open.
Yep.
So that was the scheme, but he was comfortable enough to stay in there and deliver the ball. Jacksonville's inability to get pressure on him in that game also led them being as successful as he was.
But it's not like anyone would look at the Falcons and say, you know, it's not really all Matt Ryan. A lot of it was Kyle Shanahan putting that game in place, and Matt Ryan was just executing, right? It is a little bit of both.
No, but Kyle Shanahan got a lot of credit for Matt Ryan's MVP season. I think people said Matt Ryan was this level of a player, and then Kyle Shanahan ticked him up a level. But when Jalen Ramsey says it's scheme, if you just dive into the box score for a minute, who was the Niners' leading receiver in that game? Their fullback, right? Kyle Juszczyk. So, like, what does that tell you? That tells you that maybe they saw on film the Jags are totally abandoning this area. We can exploit this. And so there are certain parts where I get what Jalen's saying. But the other thing about Jalen is this. Man, there hasn't been a football game Jalen's played in about 5 months. He wants to talk to somebody, wants to talk trash to somebody, wants to talk about something.
And his family's tired of hearing it.
So he's like, all right, let me go down the schedule. What was the first game? All right, you know what? That guy stinks. Like, that's who Jalen is, which is why we love him.
All right, moving on. It is always good to set goals for yourself. My goal, a long team-building weekend with Nick and Chris at a gym somewhere. Nice. Nick and Chris's goals? Anything but that.
Yes, well done.
Joel Embiid's goal for next season, win the MVP award. The 24-year-old is coming off his best NBA season, averaging 23 points and 11 boards in 63 games. Nick, how close is Embiid from being an MVP candidate?
Oh, he's an MVP candidate right now. You come up second in Defensive Player of the Year, 24 years old. You averaged 23 and 11 last year in only 30 minutes a game. Like, next year, those minute restrictions are going to be gone now. So if you gave you 23 and 11 in 30 minutes, add 20% more minutes, like, because you're going to be playing probably 36 minutes. Now we're talking about a 26 and 14 guy. Team won 52 games. They win 55, 56 games. Like, let's assume they don't get LeBron. And then you also have to think about who isn't a candidate. Harden's not going to be it doesn't matter what Harden does. He won the MVP this year. I just feel.
And finished second and third the last couple years, so it's kind of a. You know, he will be out of the conversation.
He'll be out. You look at the rank. You look at how the finish was this year for Durant. Durant was outstanding. He didn't finish in the top 6 because the voters have agreed, and I think somewhat rightfully, it's tough to vote for any of the Warriors. Steph didn't finish in the top 7. Now, he missed some games. Russ, averaged a triple-double again, finished 5th.
So wasn't even the conversation.
Right, so there's 4 of your top 6 players in the league that aren't really even eligible for the award, you would think.
Good point.
So you have Embiid. You got Anthony Davis.
Yes.
Giannis and LeBron. Like, Embiid's on that list with those guys. To me, as a guy, I don't know what the Vegas odds are right now. I don't even know if they've been set. But I would say Embiid should be one of the 5 leading contenders going into next year.
I believe he will be. I believe if Golden State or Houston, and whichever player or team is having the best season. So if it's KD and Golden State, if they're on a record-breaking pace, they will include that player. If Houston was able to get on the pace to win 65 to 68 games again, then Harden, if he plays the same way, he would be involved in that conversation. But Joel Embiid, he'll be on everyone's list approaching 2018-19 season because he's proven to us that he can be somewhat durable, and we saw the whole scope of his game. And it's everywhere. He can shoot the 3. He can play in the pick and roll. He's got a fantastic intermediate game. And in the low post, tell me a better center that has more moves in the low post than Joel Embiid. So, yes, he should be included as one of the best players in the world.
And I apologize just quickly here. The other part of this is the defensive side of the ball with the Defensive Player of the Year. Like, I'm 95% sure the last time a player won Defensive Player of the Year and MVP in the same season was Jordan in the late 80s. Like, MVP, yes, we incorporate your defense, but it's typically an offensive award. But if you're a big man that is this level of impact defensively and you're putting up 25 and 12, like, that just adds to the case. So, yeah, Embiid should be, yes, he should shoot for a championship, but it's good to set individual goals, and he is that caliber of player.
And he's already an all-star, all right? An all-star, all-NBA, and to be the MVP. Those are the type of goals that players
So besides
like Joel
more
Embiid.
minutes, what else does he need to work on for him to lock this up?
For him to the first year he played, the year before last, he was a 37% three-point shooter. Last year, on the exact same number of threes per game, it dropped to 30%. If he doesn't have to be a high-volume three-point shooter, but if he can get around 35% again, where he is at least a threat from the outside, that's the one aspect of his game that you saw. You're like, oh wow, Embiid can be a stretch 5 at times. That went away last year. He's got to get that back to the level it was his
Also, if he can be dominant in the fourth quarter, that we've seen Harden and LeBron. They're always one of the leading scorers in the fourth quarter. So improve his overall percentage as far as shooting the 3 and also be more efficient and dominant in the fourth quarter. I believe that puts more eyeballs on him in that MVP conversation.
And Akeem's the last one to do it. The guy, I was wrong about Jordan. Akeem, Defensive Player of the Year, MVP, same year. Guy a lot of people Embiid reminds them of.
We're going to take a break now. Coming up, how much pressure is Magic Johnson under to bring stars to L.A. next? First things first. Chris Broussard is joining us to talk NBA, but first we're going viral. Giants' number 2 overall pick, Saquon Barkley, has yet to sign his rookie contract. He's already spending some of his money fulfilling a lifelong dream of buying his parents a house.
Oh, that's awesome.
Really, really nice.
That's really
CC, remember
cool.
your first big purchase when you first got that big paycheck?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I mean, with the one from college or illegally or the one with the NFL? Oh, yeah.
I'll let you answer.
Yeah, first thing I purchased was because I didn't have any ever. First thing I bought was a house.
Keep it real. I like
I had always lived in the
Was it your
project.
house or your mom?
No, I bought a house for myself. I'm a wide receiver.
Not a running back.
My brother Butch had already been in the NBA, so Mom had already been moved out of the hood.
About that.
Okay. So I had a little help.
Could have gone so many places with that. The first big purchase with that college money. What were you and your friends doing?
Really, the first thing you bought?
Oh, I went and bought a Nissan 280 T-tops.
Did you?
Yeah, CC number 2 on the tags. Stereo system, a case of beer for one of my friends down the hallway to hook everything up.
All that on that little job at the rec center at Ohio State?
No, I ain't had no summer job.
It wasn't even a front. There was
No, man. Go to Western Union. You can read about it. Google it. The fans were waiting there for me.
They were in line in front of you. How long is this line? Oh, how you going?
I love the subtlety of it.
Signing for it. Smooth. Chris Carter. Yeah.
CC number 2 on the play So much. Real discreet, see.
All right. Let's talk some NBA free agency. The Lakers seem to have center stage as we get set for the July 11th free agent period. Big names like LeBron and Paul George, even Kawhi Leonard have all been rumored to want to land in Los Angeles, either signing there or via a trade. Team President Magic Johnson met the media yesterday and said it's not all about this offseason.
If we're banking on one summer for the Lakers, we're in trouble, right? We're in trouble because you have to give us time. This class, like I told you before I took the job and when I took the job, it's going to be a 2-summer thing for the Lakers. This summer and next summer. And that's it. And then if I can't deliver, I'm going to step down myself. She won't have to fire me. I'll step away from it, because then I can't do this job. No pressure on me. I mean, I'm gonna do my job. I've always done that. Look, I've been playing in, how many finals I've been in? So you think I'm worried about this? I played against Larry Bird in the finals. I mean, come on, man. I've been in 9 finals. I've been in college NCAA championship, I'm Magic Johnson. I'm still the same dude.
Well, all righty then.
I mean, who they think they was talking to? Mitch Kupchak? Hey, Mitch Kupchak, how you gonna get this team?
They thought they were talking to Irvin Johnson. He had to let you know, I'm in Magic mode.
That's got to be a
free agency. I'm in
my
Magic
resume.
mode.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
Well, you heard that. What did everything you just heard? What did that tell you about the Lakers' future, Chris?
Well, as far as their future, look, it told me the same thing. It told me, what was it, 4 months ago maybe when the story came out that, hey, it's not about this summer necessarily. We're looking at 2019. It tells me they're not certain that they're going to make a huge free agent splash this summer. And I got to be honest, if they don't get one of these big-name free agents this summer, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Just save your room because Kawhi Leonard, if you have the cap room, he will go there next summer, and then you probably get LeBron as well. So, and it would give you time to really see what you have. So ultimately, you're saying
Kawhi, he's going to force his way out of San Antonio, and whoever gets him, eventually they're going to lose him to the Lakers because the NBA players.
Yeah, at this point, unless something changes, which it could, because we thought Paul George was definitely going to go there.
He was definitely going there.
There's nothing 100%. But Kawhi right now has his eyes on L.A., particularly the Lakers. And also, look, if you don't get a big-name free agent, you still have 3 young, exciting players. Let them continue to grow and just see what they become. And, you'll have a better gauge on what they are. Are they parts of your future or not?
You read this very similarly to how I did. Magic Johnson's not a dumb man, and he's a prideful man, and he's not in the business of saying, I'm going to quit a job if this doesn't happen, unless he fully believes this is going to happen. And so when he says this year or next year, we're going to get one of these whales, I don't think he says that if he is not fully confident. They got one of these guys all but locked up. And I think that guy's Kawhi. I think that he wants Paul George. He would love to have LeBron. And no, not this year. We'll try to trade for Kawhi. We'll see what it is. But what we know is this. There's no franchise tag in the NBA. And Kawhi Leonard wants to get out of San Antonio so badly, he's going to sacrifice $70 million. That's the difference between the Paul George scenario. We all thought Paul George was going to leave Oklahoma City to go to L.A., and he still might. But at no point was there the financial hit that he was taking. But Kawhi is going to take that financial hit by not signing the Supermax with the Spurs. He's doing that, by all reports, to get to Los Angeles. So I think Magic is... I don't even want to say it's hedging his bet. He is making a proclamation that he believes he's already essentially delivered, that we're getting one of these guys is coming here, and I think the guy he's most confident in is Kawhi.
Let me say this, and this is my feeling from knowing Magic fairly well. If they don't get a big-name free agent this summer or next summer, I don't think he'll want to remain as president. Magic is bigger than president of an NBA team. I mean, he's coming back to do this, to get them some superstars. This is his franchise. But that's it. Magic, I don't see him being a front office lifer like Jerry West. I don't see him being a guy that's going to grind to build up a mediocre team into a champion. I think he's here to get the big names, and if in 2 years they still just got the same old young players, I think Magic will want to step away. He's got too much going on. He's got the Dodgers. He's got his other businesses. I think he's more on the level of being like a Michael Jordan, an owner of an NBA team who gets involved with the personnel stuff rather than just a president for the long haul. So I tend to believe that he would be like, you know what, I'll just walk away. I got so much other stuff going on as well.
Is it about getting one guy? Would getting LeBron or a Kawhi, would that be enough to either keep him there or consider his time there a success? Or does he need to get two big guys or throw in a Paul George?
I was around when this network started. I was at another network. You got to get a Colin Cowherd.
Yep.
You got to get one person. LeBron James. If you get LeBron, man, how Paul George going to turn that down? Because LeBron's not there yet. But if he was there, would there be a real conversation? Oh, you want to play in OKC with Russ, or you want to play with LeBron in Los Angeles? So just like this network, man, you got to go out and get
Colin begets
one
Skip,
guy.
who begets Chris, like
who
that.
obviously got me.
Yeah, no,
so.
Clearly. No,
Yeah.
but
Yes. And then Lonzo Ball, we traded in San Antonio.
but I mean, no, but that is,
That's a great illustration.
It's a great example. I say that to Colin actually all the time, like, because Skip gets a ton of the headlines, obviously, around the network, but like, we are not us without Colin getting us going. Like, Colin gave this network legitimacy. And then we get Skip, and then we bring Broussard over, we bring you over. There's some good young talent involved as well, hopefully. And so, like, that's how this thing works. And so, I think they hired Magic for this express purpose. Like, the analytics community killed this hire. Oh, how much does he know the CBA? Is he going to be scouting in Europe? Is he going to...
That's my point, yeah.
That ain't his damn job.
Not his job.
Guess what Magic Johnson's job is? To be Magic Johnson. And to be another reason why LeBron or Kawhi or Paul George will go there, because when you're already the Lakers and you're already Los Angeles, and then you have a superstar, then you become the most attractive destination in the sport.
I believe also because of what Magic has done and the level of respect that LeBron and his team have for Magic, that LeBron feels like he could duplicate some of those same things.
No doubt.
He's Magic Johnson 2018. And also, I'm not with you on the Magic Jordan thing. I believe Magic want to hold one of them trophies because that's all he's done is won.
Well,
high school,
Jordan wants to too. What do you mean?
They're different people.
You just see him more
I believe like
wanting to be
Michael Jordan when he
hands-on.
went to Washington, there's a lot of defiance in Michael.
Yes,
all right? As long as
agree.
Michael is the guy, all right, Michael is cool with that. Michael is the GOAT. Magic is still collecting trophies from a business standpoint. That's why he went out and bought a piece of the Dodgers. That's why he did the things in the community the way he did them. And I believe that the Lakers, and bringing them back to legitimacy, and if he can host that trophy as an exec, I believe it would be the crown jewel in everything that he's done.
Wow. Okay.
All right, Chris, we'll see you in a little bit.
All right.
Take a quick break. Coming up, 5-time Pro Bowler Tamba Hali joins the show.
Finally, we get a KC Chief on this show.
What's going
Welcome back to First Things First. Tamba Hali has an incredible career. Spent all 12 seasons with the Chiefs, making the Pro Bowl 5 times. And he joins us on the program. Tamba, thank you much for being here.
It's about time we had Kansas City Chief in studio.
Oh,
Good to
boy.
see you,
Here we
Tamba.
go.
Too.
How are you?
What's up, Chris? How you doing?
You know, Tamba, we were talking earlier in the show about Von Miller, who came out and said he wants to play, after playing 7 seasons, wants to play 10 more seasons. I mean, when you get past 3.5, I feel like every season is a bonus. You've played so long already. What are your plans now? Can you kind of fill us in on what your plan is now for the coming year or two?
I'm just having fun. I've been doing music lately. Still working out, doing jiu-jitsu. But I need to do my physical to make sure my body is right before I even try to pursue football anymore.
Oh, okay.
But I've just been having fun with my music.
Good.
And the music, if people don't know, and we'll get to the football stuff in a little bit, I know you from way back, right after you got drafted, when I was right out of college. We're almost the exact same age. Man, I remember being at your house a decade ago. You had a music studio back then. This was always something during your career. It's been a passion for you, right?
Yes. I've always done music. I played in the church. I sang in the church. I played the drums in the church. I got drafted. I did broadcast journalism at Penn State, so I knew the technical side when it came to editing and stuff like that. But I've always done music. I sang, I rap, I did it as a hobby, but people always felt it was good. So I wanted to pursue it later on.
And this is it. You can hear right now.
Hear what we're
And this is not the type of career, though, that you can't still pursue being a professional athlete. In your years of experience being around the league, how do you feel like that's going to help you in trying to select this second career that you want to go into?
Tough question. Well, I think the cause for doing music, for me, because I love doing music, and the reason I'm going to do music could definitely help, especially being that I play in the league and I have this platform that I can use to help bring awareness to things that I'm pursuing. Being the fact that I'm from Liberia, I will want to do some work in Liberia. The style of music I'm making is Afrobeat. It's more catered to African, international sound. So, we want to bring awareness to it, and hopefully, being the fact that I played in the NFL, it could help me.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you mentioned your roots, and I promise we'll get to football in a second. But people don't know, you're born in 1983, correct?
83.
83 in Liberia. In 1989 in Liberia, a civil war breaks out.
Yes.
A few years later, that civil war starts touching your hometown to the point to where your mom takes you and your siblings out of the city. You guys, it's foraging for food for a little bit is, I think, a fair way to put it.
Yeah.
Just to keep you guys safe. You eventually come over to the States, and then you didn't go back for a long time, right?
Right.
You recently went back for the first time, if I have this correct. So can you just tell the audience a little bit about what your life was like growing up, and then what it was like to go back to Liberia for the first time as a grown man, as a professional football player?
Yeah, like you said, in '89, the war erupted. I was there with my stepdad, my mother, my brother, 4 or 5 siblings. At times, we had to go into hiding back and forth. Planes would come, they would be shooting, and we'll get into hiding. We'll come back out of hiding, the war would die down. After that, for several months, we fled the country, went to the Ivory Coast, got in contact with my dad, Henry. He was in the States. He teaches chemistry, physics. And he came back far for us. We got to the States. And being here, we had an opportunity. It's by the grace of God, I was able to stay in line and make the NFL, go to school.
Get a scholarship first.
Get a scholarship. Play for Penn State, Joe Paterno. And then, I've been playing 12 years. And then I went back, and I was able to go search for my house, see the place, see where I grew up from, being away from about, I want to say 20 years. I've been in the States 24 years. And, for me, it was touching, and it brought back a sense of wanting to help back home, wanting to go back home and do stuff there, because it's a third world country.
God, football seems like nothing compared to what you went through. This is a piece of cake. 12 years playing football probably was just I'm joking. I know how challenging it was for you. You did spend so much time playing and were so successful. And I know that you're sort of going through this change, this metamorphosis, deciding whether there's still football left in you. And I know you want to focus on your music as well. But looking back, what were the last couple years like for you? How much did you enjoy playing with the Chiefs? How hard is it for you to not go back to the thing you've done so consistently for the last couple of years?
Well, when Andy came in, a lot changed. Andy is probably the best coach I've played for.
Andy Reid, yeah.
Andy Reid, yes. And the way he structured the program, the winning started to come, the way he treated us as men. And, and you had to adjust, and I always had to adjust, and it was fun. And then my playing time dwindled, and I was so used to always being the guy to be, and I pride myself on that. But, it gave me a different perspective at life, that, at one point you're going to be here, and then there's another guy that's going to come, and you can't do it forever. And my body started to go. And for me, I'm a competitor. I didn't care how bad my body was. I still wanted to play.
You were frustrated at times.
Yes.
Like, even that you thought, even if I can't practice, I can help on Sunday.
I can still play.
But one thing, there was a tremendous moment this year, a kid who I've been knowing since he was a kid, and because I went to college with his mother, and I helped persuade him at a young age to attend the high school where I coached. His name was Joey Bosa. So seeing you on the field working with Joey Bosa, it just brings back to my mind all the great men that we have seen play this game. You're at the lowest point in your career. They're trying to move you out the door. They're telling you you can't play. Right. What is inside of a man that when people say that you can decide, like, this kid's special, and I'm going to give him some of these things that the NFL has given me?
Yeah, Joey and I, we go back to Ohio State. Larry Johnson Sr.
Yes.
He coaches at Ohio State, and we've had a relationship ever since I left Penn State.
He was the linebackers coach at Penn State?
The defensive lineman coach.
Defensive line coach at Penn State.
The best defensive line coach in college football.
Yes.
Penn State, made his name, made his mark. Now he's at Ohio State.
And his son was an all-pro teammate of yours, Larry Johnson Jr. in
Yes.
Kansas City. But go ahead.
But Coach will call me down because I took on to Joe Kim in his technique of teaching handwork.
Oh, okay.
And so I went down and worked with Joey and the guys at Ohio State, Penn State, please. But I worked with Joey there, and when he got drafted, I watched him, and he's a beast. So, you know, there's certain things I learned, and I wanted to pass it to Joey. And he seen me do the move twice, and I beat the guy and it clean and hit the quarterback every time. And after the game, he came to me. He's like, "You got to teach me that move. You got to teach me the move." And I was, you know, just trying to show him it's step work. But you know, Joey, he would be great.
All right, so I want to talk for a moment, even if you might not be on the team. What do you think about Pat Mahomes for next year?
I think he's phenomenal. If I should compare the guy, he's a Brett Favre, a mini Brett Favre.
Wow.
He would run, he would throw it off his back foot, he would look out, look this way, throw it that way. I mean, we watched him in practice, we were impressed. I mean, so impressed.
Yeah. Now, Kansas City, we talk about the quarterback. What does Andy Reid, you talked about the change he made, what does he need to do? Because he's gotten rid of some good players. Let Marcus Peters go. How do you get better by getting rid of some good players to be able to change the whole program?
I think the culture, you know, he had to change a little bit about the culture that we had there. You know, some guys wasn't trying to stay in line, but Andy doesn't need anything. I mean, whoever he brings in, he will be able to use whoever that's in the program to be able to win. And I've seen him done. He did it with backup players. He took the starters out, went and played San Diego first team, and pretty much won the game. But we didn't make the field goal. But you know, Andy is he's just a guru. He don't need anything.
If I may, just quickly before you go, a lot of great players in Kansas City Chiefs history. A lot of those players, not necessarily the happiest, were Kansas City Chiefs because of who they were as people, but they were great players. Tamba is one of the 3 or 4 guys that most exemplifies what I've always hoped my hometown team would be: great players and a great human being, and someone that I've been able to follow my entire adult life. It's really great to have you on. Thank you so much.
Tamba, thank you so much.